Let's see. What was I doing? Oh yeah. Brushel's card. So, a journalist was here on a story. All eyes in the universe are upon my stage. All pens seek to commit its mysteries to paper. His name was Brushel. Brushel. I think he remembers him. He doesn't look too happy about it. Brushel. And that cloying smell of mint when he smiles, yes. Could you tell us more about him? What did he want? What did he want? Mr. Brushel, the journalist. Oh no, I remember him now. A man by that name called on me just now. Just now? Valent's vision is always towards tomorrow. Valent's feet step always forward. That is all. That's all. Very confusing. I am to perform a big magic show, yes? I wanted someone to cover it. Yet, he had ears only for that incident. That incident? In any case, I requested that rapacious reporter remove himself. So a painter had died, what of it? It is but a footnote in the footlights compared to the magic of Gramarye. Uncle Valent, do you know where that reporter went? I recommended he visit that place popular with penalized perpetrators. The detention center. He was a rude individual. Might I see that card? Sure. He would tear apart my respectability. I will tear apart him. Ooh. Here comes Apollo, Uncle Valent's big magic trick. Is he going to fix the card? Not sure that qualifies as big magic. ... What happened to the big magic? Is it not more miraculous for it to stay ripped? He must have really not liked that journalist. Now, the time has come when I must return to make my prestidigitation preparations. By your leave, Miss Trucy. Oh, thanks, Uncle Valent. 3 days from now. Make ready for a miracle. What do you think that journalist was after? Why did Valent react like that to this envelope? This envelope. I think it's time to pay the detention center another visit. I think so too. Hey, Daddy-o. Bye, Daddy-o. Tap, 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 tap. I think I hear what you're saying. We're all doing it for the money. End quote. No, not at all. Looks like someone's already meeting here. Are you that reporter? Yeah, this guy. Hey there! How you doing? Who might you be? Sorry, we didn't know someone was already here. I'm Apollo Justice, attorney at law. Talk about a nervous monkey. You're Justice? You know me? Do I know you? Of course I know you! Stares down witnesses on the stand till they spill beans. End quote. That's not true. What's he writing? Are you a reporter by any chance? Whoa! You're Trucy! Am I famous? Oh yeah! Trucy Wright hates carrying a bag. Puts everything she owns in her panties. End quote. That's so not true. Just hold on to your breeches there. I'll wrap up this interview in a jiffy. Interview? So, guard, I think I know what's going on here. Guarding rooms is my life. What else could I possibly need? End quote. No! How many times do I have to tell you this? Look, I've got work to do. You deal with him. Did you come here to interview the guard? Ooh-wee, what a pickle. Accused wouldn't talk. Had to interview someone or go plumb crazy. End quote. Huh? I should have guessed. Where are my manners? Name's Brushel, Spark Brushel. I'm not picky. Journalist just closes eyes, writes. End quote. What's that nauseatingly strong mint smell every time he grins?
Until you've been interviewed by me, you don't know what thrilling is. Wild romp through crossroads of mayhem, madness, end quote.
I can see that. He's writing something again. Well, if he's a reporter, maybe he knows something. Present badge!
Right. Let me go on the record here.
Yes?
I know what you're going to say. Brushel, take this. Write brilliant column. End quote.
I don't think so.
Look, buddy, I write brilliant columns about one thing, and that's food. Try to understand.
What could he possibly be writing? He didn't listen to a word I said. Oh, I don't even have your card anymore. It's just completely gone. All right, let's talk. Hold on. More importantly, hey, guard, are you okay over there? Same old security guard is glaring at us. Oh, he winked. Same thing as last time. He has not changed ever since this nerd showed up. So, Mr. Brushel, you're a journalist?
Me? Look, let me state one thing for the record here.
Yes?
I'm the interviewer. You understand, yeah? I'm the one asking the questions here. End quote.
Oh, okay.
For instance, you think a movie director watches movies?
Well, I think he probably does.
Exactly! I knew you'd understand.
Huh? So, the night of the murder, you were at Drew's studio?
Who, me? Look, let me state one thing for the record.
Yes?
I may look calm and collected, but I'm busy, real busy, always on the road. Journalist always buys one-way tickets, never looks back. End quote.
I can understand the philosophy, but
you want to know the thing about one-way tickets? Once you use them, they're gone. All because you have to give them to the guy at the airport.
True enough. Don't they give normal tickets too? But don't they give normal tickets away too?
Exactly! See? It's the same thing.
What is? So, you want to do a story on Drew Misham, and he'd never had a story done about him before.
That's right. Look, let me say one thing for the record here.
What?
I'm sure you're going to want to know about my source. What tipped me off to Drew? Why do the interview in the first place?
Well, yes.
Look, it's like, oh, I've got it. Say there's this burger joint with fabulous ketchup. You think that the burger guy is going to tell me where he got it?
At the supermarket, maybe?
Exactly. See? That's what I'm talking about.
I think I may have actually understood that one.
Well, there's nothing I can talk about, really. Walls have ears, eyes, especially glass walls with speakers, end quote.
Right. Guess we'll leave then.
But since you're here, might as well tell you a tidbit of news I saw, just for the heck of it.
Sure, tell us. Just for the heck of it.
I remember it like it was yesterday. I had seen a movie on a trip and wandered into this burger place with amazing ketchup, when an article in a tabloid caught my eye. Famous oil painting stolen from art dealer's gallery, end quote, I believe it was. An oil painting. Happens every day, right? But I thought I'd seen that painting somewhere before. A painting of a giant peach floating down a river.
Someone stole an oil painting? A giant peach?
Journalists can smell scoop better than burgers, end quote.
You mean like this one?
Right.
Oh, same. Hold on. How about this one? Nope. Is there really nothing else I have on me? Blah, 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 blah. I really don't want your minty smile and really aggressive 5 o'clock shadow anymore. Oh yeah, did you do it? No, of course not. Alright, well, I guess it's time to go. I'll check everywhere else first, and if I don't get any notification about, like, a new event happening, then I will hop on back. Aha! Well, how'd it go? Find anything out? Actually, there was one thing I wanted to check with you. What's with that scary face you're making? And what's with that I know something but I'm not telling face you've got going, Emma? Hey, tell me about this. This painting came from behind that dresser. Yes. So? It was stolen, no? I was hoping you wouldn't figure that out. You think you could tell us a bit about this? I suppose it's what you think. Drew Misham was a forger. A forger? Well, that explains why there's 3 completely different paintings there. So, what exactly is a forger? Well, basically, it's someone who makes forgeries. Fakes, in other words. Fakes? Copies of an original. Exact copies, so precise you can't tell them apart. Well, why not just photocopy them? The big problem with forgeries is that people try to sell them as the real article. It's a crime, of course. So, Drew Misham was a criminal? I'm afraid so. He received money to create elaborate forgeries. To supplement his work in illustration, I guess. I see. Actually, that's why I bought this here in the first place. What do you mean? When you're trying to determine if a painting is a forgery, the rough sketch underneath is a valuable clue. So the rough sketch is like practice for the real thing. Like doing a magic trick in front of a mirror before you go on stage. But not in the case of a forgery. Not necessarily, anyway. You know what the finished product is going to look like after all. Oh, yeah, I guess you would. That's why I brought this. I'm going to use it to see what's under the paint of the finished pieces. I get it now. Not that I really needed to go to such lengths, seeing as how one of the paintings was only half finished anyway. Still, it'd be neat to see Mr. Misham's rough sketches. Kinda like what he was drawing when he thought no one was looking. True. That would be interesting. Maybe valuable for our case. You should try buttering her up, Apollo. Flattery will get you everywhere, they say. Huh. Maybe I should ask Emma to help us out. Show me this one. I kind of wanted to see the rough sketch under this painting. And I was wondering if this tool might do the trick. Oh, fine. Just this time, though. Let's check it out. Let's start with this one. Ha. Oh. 4, 3, 2, ace, ace. What? What the heck? Wow, he really blows. The finished painting isn't anything like the rough. Devices like mine didn't exist until recently. He probably thought he could draw any sort of thing he wanted to for the rough. What do you mean? Well, in the past, you could only analyze the composition of a rough sketch. Composition? In other words, the traces of charcoal between paint and canvas. So you could tell if there had been a rough sketch, but not what it looked like. Ah, I think I follow you. So, in essence, it wouldn't matter what was underneath the finished painting. Some pros would actually paint out a rough sketch entirely, then do a completely new painting on top of that. So, Mr. Misham was drawing whatever he wanted on the painting over them? Possibly. Is there a problem with that? Not particularly, but something about the sketch itself is kind of odd. You're awfully silent all of a sudden, Apollo. You think we could check out one of the other paintings? Well, sure. You like this detection stuff, don't you? Let's check the pufferfish. Is there gonna be a dead body? Maybe not in this one. Oh, this looks like a house. Oh. Someone's looking at my cases. Someone's a fan. This one too. What's wrong, Apollo? You look so serious all of a sudden. You think I could just look at the last one of these? Fine by me. Knock yourself out. Head of lettuce is going to be dead on the ground. Oh no, it's them. Oh, it's Gavin on fire on the stage. Okay, let's print this one out. What the heck is all this? I hesitate to ask why you're getting so excited. You sure your device isn't leaking some kind of strange radiation? Trucy, look at these 3 sketches. Do you notice anything? There. Now you're both white as sheets. What's going on? These sketches are of the 3 cases I worked on. What? The murder in the poker room at the Borscht Bull Club. The dead man pulling the noodle stand. And then the events that transpired during the Gaviners concert. What could it mean? How could he have drawn those things? And why? That's what I want to know. Wait, is Drew Misham your father? Give me a break. Does that even seem remotely possible to you? I'd never even heard of Drew Misham before. I hadn't even seen a picture of him. But there were my cases, drawn on his canvas. Every single one of them. It couldn't have been a coincidence. Just who was this Drew Misham? And what did he have to do with me? To be continued. October 8th, 9:48 a.m. Good morning. So, you're Vera, right? I'm Trucy. Trucy Wright. That's, right with a W, but, not right as in writing, right? We're on your side. You can tell us anything. Please? Good morning. She speaks? Not bad, not bad. But I think you'd do better with a little smile, you know? You're so pretty. You need to sell yourself, you know? Trucy, let's take it easy for starters. Thank you for taking my case. Okay, well, that's a start, I guess. There she goes with a nail polish again. That's great, really. It's so cultured. Want to try? Ooh, really? Girls. The victim, Drew Misham, was a forger. The stolen painting was found in his studio. A life of crime, really. Maybe that one that led to his death. 10 a.m. sharp. Well, we will now begin the trial of their omission.
Is the judge okay? His voice is all raspy, and he's looking around all nervous-like.
The repercussions of today's trial will most likely be felt for a long time. It may indeed alter our legal system forever. Today is a test of the juris system, and the first step towards a new order in our courts.
Daddy's secret mission!
The jurists will function like a jury. It is hoped their inclusion will help the courts to better reflect the people's will.
Why aren't there any jurists in the courtroom?
3 closed-circuit cameras watch this courtroom at all times. The jurists have access to everything that transpires. Jurists! Judge well and judge cool. Now see here, Prosecutor Gavin. I was going to say that. My apologies there, Judge. Jurists, today, judge today's trial coolly, if you would be so kind. The jurists are unbound by the letter of the law. They don't affect the trial with evidence, but by their feelings. We're about to find out just what effect they're going to have. Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. The details of the case, if you would. The victim is the painter Drew Misham. He was killed in his own studio. His coffee was poisoned. By whom, you ask? By none other than the defendant, Vera Misham. There wasn't any poison in the coffee. Someone has been doing their homework. Indeed, poison was not present in the coffee, but on the mug itself. The mug? Ah, residue was found on the rim, I see. The autopsy report describes the manner of our victim's death. The court accepts this as evidence. Atroquinine poisoning. If you'll let me have a peek real quick, 52, male, October 6th, between 9 and 9:30 p.m. Atroquinine poisoning. You know, we haven't had to refer to this. I guess it was just the last case. I think we did it in the second case. The victim's death was caused by atroquinine poisoning, a chemical compound that does not occur naturally. Lethal dosage is a mere 0.002 milligrams. A touch of atroquinine in the body is the touch of the Reaper's scythe. Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. You may present your witness. I have for you today a simple man for a simple case. A man who witnessed the murder in its entirety. That journalist, no doubt. The witness will state his name and occupation.
Right. Well, for starters, my name is Spark Brushel. My job is a lone observer of the world.
In other words, a freelance journalist, right?
If you don't mind, I'd like to state something for the record.
Yes, Mr. Brushel?
I dislike conclusions, specifically the aspect of jumping to conclusions. Preconceptions make Park Sandbox of endless desert waste. End quote.
But you are a journalist. You said so yourself yesterday.
Well, that's true, yes. But you must understand, I stand before you today as a man with a dream. I'm offering you my testimony in exchange for exclusive rights to the story. Scoop turns Mr. Brushel into that Mr. Brushel. End quote.
Let's hear your testimony then, shall we? A simple case, huh, Gavin? For me, the jury is still out.
I visited the studio around 9 that night to do the interview. The first outsider to enter the atelier. Journalist history made. End quote. His daughter brought us coffee right after we started. And you know what happened next? Star falls. End quote. No one else entered the room beside her the whole time.
That does sound like a simple case. Unless you were the one who poisoned him.
But what are you saying, Judge?
Need I remind you, the cameras are still rolling today. I felt the need to be a bit dramatic. You didn't do it, did you?
Me do a thing like that? Come on, that's like a newsmaker making the news, end quote. Or even contemporary witch hunt, end quote. I know, wild accusations rock courtroom, end quote.
Rock indeed. Prosecutor Gavin looks like he's having fun. I'm so happy for him. Very well. Mr. Justice, your cross-examination, please. All right, let's press everything. Of course, you were also in the room on that night, so we can press that, but let's see everything else. 9 at night? Isn't that a little late for an interview?
If the great painter Drew Bisham says come at 9, believe you me, I go at 9. The first, and as it turned out, our last interview with such a prolific painter.
Right. Can you tell us what it was like when you arrived?
Journalistic history made.
You were the first reporter ever in Drew's studio?
Posterity will look back on that night like a turning point in journalistic history.
As a turning point.
A basically insignificant step for all mankind, but a giant step for that Brushel guy, end quote.
If no one on the outside ever had access to the studio, then it would serve to reason that the deed was done by an insider. By which he means Vera did it. So, how did this epic-making interview go? Would you mind being a little more specific?
Oh, let me tell you, I enjoy a cuppa. In fact, it all began when I was in 3rd grade. Nope, wait, 4th grade.
That's not what I meant. I believe I know what Air Forehead is driving at. This coffee the victim was served. Did anyone other than the defendant touch it? Right, that. That's what I was going to say, really.
Well, now, if you've got a question to ask, you best straight up ask it. That's what I tell all the new recruits, several times if necessary. Right for a grade schooler. That's my motto. Which isn't to say I can only write grade school level stuff, mind you.
Who touched the coffee?
Dunno. I was in the back looking at the studio's equipment when she served it.
And what happened next?
Star falls, end quote.
What's this about a star falling?
Star falls, huh? It's like an old telegram. Send money, over. Zowie, you don't know? That's like a journalism code word. An important personage passes away. A star falls. Get it? There's no gravity in space, is there? I wouldn't think stars could fall, really. Does this matter? Boy, this is good stuff. Good stuff. How about star breaks? Nah, lacks punch. Oh, I know. Star dies. Lacks imagination. Of course, you could go with Drew dies, straight to the point. I like it.
I think we need to hear something about something a little bit more substantial. Let's hear about the moment of death. About when Mr. Misham passed away.
Boy, what a scene that was. Puts his coffee mug down with a crash, right?
Yes, and then?
And the cold finger of death touches his spine. Life's flame sputters and fails. So cold was that touch, he could do naught but tremble uncontrollably. Actually, Life's flame is a little tired. Life's river flows over. Yes, that's a go. I think he's starting his article already.
Could you describe that a little more simply?
Well, as you can imagine, I was pretty surprised. He hit the floor, as they say. Artist's seizure is final performance. End quote.
Atroquinine paralyzes the central nervous system. The body arches back like a bow. The limbs tremble. That's quite enough for that. Some of us want to be able to sleep tonight.
Oh yeah? Well, I want details. Lots of juicy details.
For that, you can listen to our last year's hit single, Atroquinine, My Love, by the Gaviners, available at all major music outlets. The point here is that the victim died of atroquinine poisoning. Well, Mr. Justice, how did you find that testimony? Very important. Very important. Well, as an account of the moment of the victim's death, I'd say it's very important. Please, add it to the testimony. Very well. The court requests the victim add this account to his testimony. You say it was definitely death by poison. How can you be so sure?
Hey, look, I'm a journalist. I've seen a lot of things. I've had more than my share of experiences with so-called poisonings. Man eats fishy fish, goes bye-bye. End quote.
Food poisoning doesn't count. Should I get to talk about something else? Let's just go with what we have for now. I mean, weren't we told that atroquinine poisoning takes 15 minutes? Let's ask him something else. I don't like that yet. We don't have the details of atroquinine added to our court record yet. So, you drank the coffee that Vera served you. So you drank the coffee that Vera served you too.
Of course. When someone serves you coffee, you drink it. That's what my old boss always used to say. Never did get what he meant by it though.
But you're still alive, which is to say, you didn't die.
Of course not. No point falling before you're a star. End quote.
That's not exactly what I was getting at. What are you getting at then? You know the poison was on the rim, not in the coffee.
Oh, yes! There were 2 cups on the tray she brought. And one of the cups had Drew's signature painted on the side.
No chance the guest would take that one by mistake, I guess. Well, Mr. Justice, was that testimony important? No, it wasn't important. So Brushel drank the coffee too. Doesn't look like this is going to lead to much. Very well. Please, continue with the testimony. One more time. Let's see what the last one is. The star is coffee. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too. But did you actually see him drink the coffee?
Of course. He who sees it wins, but he who says it wins bigger. End quote. I live in a man sees dog eat dog and writes about a world. Yet? I guess I can't say I saw him drink it, really. He had one so-called sip, if that. Man puts lips to mug, drinks. End quote.
That poison is quite violent, I hear.
My stomach did a so-called somersault. And since I gulped down that coffee without so much of a second glance at it. Wait, maybe something's there. Some kind of so-called trick. Anyone want to venture a guess, for the record?
Does this guy have a pause button? Well, Mr. Justice, did you find that testimony valuable? So he put his lips to it, but we don't even know if he actually drank it. No, I don't think so. Nah. Now let's press the last one. Can you say that for sure?
For sure? Sure, I'm sure. Drew's studio isn't a big place, kiddo. I'd know if someone else had come in.
What if they'd been hiding in there from before? Even if it's someone had been hiding in the studio, they hardly could have poisoned that mug without anyone noticing.
You think I, Spark Brushel, would miss something as obvious as that? No way.
You sure makes it sound exciting. I guess that's its job. There's only one moment we need to focus on, really. A moment when the moment when Drew Misham died? Exactly. There has to be something in there. Do we have comments about it here? I don't remember. That's poison, yeah, don't lick it, Apollo. Don't worry, I'll be fine. No, you won't, you'll die. I know, man, I won't look it. Who knows what you do when I'm not watching? Like, checking trash cans! I guess I never looked at this, did I? I guess I cannot look at it. Oh? That'd have to be a really small photo to fit in there. True. And that pale bluish stain. Why would there be poison on something like this? Well, there's one obvious reason. Whoever put poison in the coffee rubbed the bit on here too. And that's not very obvious, Trucy. Let's hear about this one more time. Definitely death by poison. Does Gavin say anything about it? I guess not. So they were both served coffee. He put the coffee to his lips, but you have no clue if he actually drank it. Man, what a tough start. I wish I had the description of what the poison exactly did. Oh, sorry, hold on. Of course. It says slow acting right there.
Objection!
Oh, okay, hold on. Okay, so it is put it to the lips and then he spasmed to death. Alright. Spasmed to death? He experienced spasms until he died. There we go. It's very important. The victim drank his coffee, then immediately fell over. Oh, yes. You can go to the press with that one. Your Honor, this is a vital piece of information. Please add it to the testimony. Very well. The witness will add this to his testimony.
Vital. Right.
He had one sip of that. The next moment, he was on the floor. There we go. It does say slow acting there. You know what? You know what I have a problem with? A particular property of the poison used, atroquinine. Oh? Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. A lethal dosage of 0.002 milligrams paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, would be reduced to a quivering pile. Why are you using me as an example? Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information. An omission? Atroquinine is as virulent as he says. But death doesn't come upon ingestion, not immediately. That's because atroquinine is a slow-acting poison. Slow-acting? What? According to one forensic scientist, astonishingly slowly, at least 15 minutes. If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, then he would still have had time left to enjoy his last cup of joe. Oh my god, that posture. What's the meaning of this? What the defense says is correct. Why, that contradicts the entire testimony we just heard. Well, Mr. Brushel, anything to say? On the record? Slow acting. It was virulent, all right.
Even then, it had already begun digging its claws into the journalist.
He's working on his scoop. It's Brushel, yeah? Brushel, let's take a trip down memory lane. Huh? Did the victim really die the instant he took the sip? Think it over. This is vital.
You know what I think? I think that was a not-so-subliminal suggestion. End quote.
I admit, it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say auf Wiedersehen to my simple case. And you would be forced to say farewell to your article.
Come again?
You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up on the scent. And you'll be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye.
Scoop? Scoop? Look, wait. Just wait a second. Just 1 second.
We're waiting. Just out with it.
I think I just recalled a so-called important detail. A revival of recollection. End quote. A story survival. End quote.
Attorney utterly confused. End quote.
Actually, I did notice something when I visited the studio. I'd heard of poison that takes its sweet time, see?
But not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently. Mr. Brushel, are you saying you noticed something that explained what happened?
You bet I am. The antidote for a poisonous contradiction. End quote, you might say.
Or, I still have no idea what you're talking about. End quote, I might say.
I figured it out, only after an in-depth interview. See, thanks to my journalism skills, I know who poisoned that coffee.
As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony. Mr. Misham died in the instant after he drank.
Of course I'm standing by my testimony. My dream of exclusive rights to the story.
Ugh. I suppose it was too much to hope for. What was? Of course he wouldn't choose a simple case. Not him. Him? Phoenix Wright. Who else? Herr Brushel. Report for us, if you would. What is it that you noticed? This court is a critical trial of the jurist system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed.
When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note?
A suicide note.
Yes, he had this look on his face. Man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation. End quote.
Suicide?
Poor Mr. Misham. But that means Vera's innocent.
Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview? Oh. Very well. You may begin your cross-examination. Let's hear about that. Was there anyone at the studio other than Mr. Misham?
Well, his daughter Vera, of course.
Was anyone besides Mr. Misham and Vera present?
Not a single one. Not a cat, not a rat, not even a mouse.
The only person who didn't belong to that studio there was you. Wasn't it, Mr. Brushel?
I know what you're doing. I know your game. Attorney use a classic Ramsden phenomenon ploy. End quote. Ramsden.
If you intend to suggest that a reporter is a suspect, I'm sure you also intend to present evidence supporting that assertion, correct? In the meantime, let's move along, shall we? So he put the letter away when he saw you.
Early reporter gets the worm, end quote. That's my secret.
I'm not sure I follow.
It's the night of the interview. I arrive 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in.
Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, isn't that unlawful entry, really?
Mr. Misham sure seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into that yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret when I spot one, and that was one.
It does seem significant. Well, Mr. Justice, I wonder. It does have the ring of something important. Why not? The defense find this testimony vital, Your Honor. Very well. Please, add it to the testimony then.
Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge.
You didn't say that last bit there.
Objection!
As it just so happens, there was a single letter in a desk drawer at the scene. In a red envelope.
What?
Prosecutor Gavin. Yes? Was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime? Unfortunately, no. But, yeah, forehead. It's easy to mistake the color of an envelope. I guess. But not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already. 7 years ago. Well, Mr. Brushel?
I can explain that. Drew, right? He wanted to get that letter in an envelope. Pronto. Get it out of sight, out of my beady eyes, right? So he grabbed the nearest envelope and crammed away. And what about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump?
Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say about the witness's claim? That night, the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope. It's impossible. That's impossible. I like your expression.
So full of confidence.
It's simple, really. As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope with the assistance of a forensic scientist.
What?
Note that this letter is addressed to Drew Misham.
No?
Why would he address a letter to himself? Let alone send a suicide note to himself.
I've been scooped!
Mr. Brushel, can you explain this to the court?
Oh, my. How could I have forgotten? I suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets lots, end quote.
I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Brushel.
Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Bishop stand there searching his desk drawer for something.
His desk drawer?
Yes, a stamp! A so-called postage stamp, end quote.
A stamp? Whatever for?
Well, to mail his letter. What else? And then, why, yes, I think I saw him put his letter in the box. Yes, it was a yellow envelope, and he put it in that box.
Well, apparently, this yellow letter has nothing to do with the case.
Oh, how I wish it did. Just think if that were a suicide note. What a story! Star writes suicide note in front of reporter, falls, end quote.
As I was saying, that has nothing to do with this case. That said, yes, Your Honor? It makes me wonder about the contents of that red envelope. $100,000 is quite a good deal of money. So this is from 7 years ago, yeah?
So, am I finished? Am I finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start writing.
This guy. I had to state what should be pretty obvious to anyone. But when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face.
Come on! Attorney has active imagination, little else, end quote.
Even I noticed something. My eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about. Judge has no active imagination, end quote. Please, continue with your testimony. Tell us about the scent of a story.
Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here, usually. Actually, it took a bit of work to get the thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages story, gets interview. End quote, gets his interview. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably has something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare.
So you threatened to go to the press with this story. That's how you got your interview? Blackmail?
Well, yes. I mean, no. I wasn't exactly black.
Something wrong, Mr. Brushel?
Look, This is my story, my tidbit. Journalist's info is livelihood, end quote.
I see.
Why you have me chatting away in here? What's going on out there? What if someone Wally Wordsworth... what if some Wally Wordsworth or Sally Scooper gets wind of my story? Or someone with a lot of heart, maybe. They could be going to the press while I'm going to waste.
The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace. Certain case 7 years ago. Wait. 7 years ago?
It's all 7 years ago. Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages story, gets his interview, end quote. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. Let me perceive this.
What else can I look at?
I'm perceiving!
Maybe not here. Not even his brush is moving. You know what? Actually, no. Hey, let's talk about Drew's talent. Just how amazing was Mr. Misham's talent?
Wee boy, I mean, hey, he's a star, man, a star. The flow of his brush is like a great undulating river across the canvas. Artist paints light up studio like sun, end quote.
This guy is full of wacky gestures. That one just now is wackier than usual.
He looks kind of nervous to me, Apollo.
Definitely. I'm sensing something different here than before. Here. Maybe it's time to bring out you-know-what. It all makes sense. Nothing jumps out as ridiculous. I wonder what this story he's talking about is. Must have been good to get an interview with a famous recluse like that. Something powerful enough to drag Mr. Misham out. Maybe it had something to do with his art. Oh, whoops.
It's time to perceive.
Let's look at the Adam's apple.
Let's look at his elbow.
Do you have anywhere else I could be looking right now? Oh. His right armpit sweats.
Gotcha!
sweat much, Mr. Brushel?
Yeah, well, a man can help his glands, you know.
It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. You're hiding something about his talent.
What? That's ridiculous.
Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. It just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. It's probably this half-finished one, right? It's either that or the hidden painting. Let's do the stolen one first. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. There are two problems with this painting. The first is that it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio, which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation. The business of making forgeries. Aug. There he goes. That is all, Your Honor.
Everyone, please, everyone. Can we keep this private? Please. This is my story, my scoop.
Forgery? That's a serious crime.
Drew Misham is known as an artist these days. There were rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back.
Another art, meaning forgery?
Drew Misham was talented, all right. Talented in making precise, detailed fakes. The fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover.
Criminal elements? What? You can't seriously be talking about...
Exactly. I'm talking about forging evidence. The rumors started circulating 7 years ago.
7 years ago? So, are we to understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for...
Exactly. Forged evidence and its tidy profit, end quote.
What? It's like our victim was living a double life.
This is my chance.
So the victim had ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies who we knew nothing about. This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation. But how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. There's no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was, and remains, simple from the beginning. Only the defendants could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course.
Hey, the only thing I poison is my pen when I'm writing reviews.
Food reviews. Mr. Brushel, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen.
What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism so solid you could stand an elephant on it. End quote.
In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap, the trial is over.
Paulo, what's he talking about?
Cross-examination showed Mr. Brushel didn't have the reason or means to poison him. As long as there's no other suspects, and the killer had to be Vera, that's what. This next testimony is our last chance. Mr. Brushel, your testimony, please.
The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She's admitted as much herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly, the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter.
A nice testimony. Clear, succinct, and without room for doubt.
Oh, shucks. You really think so?
I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well. Mr. Justice, You may begin your final cross-examination.
Right. I still have one trump card left to play. I won't let this trial end until I use it.
Well...
Hold it!
Not one thing? You're sure?
Yep, sure as sure can be. Well, with one exception.
One exception? What?
Journalist Spark Brushel does interview, leaves studio. End quote. Man's really fucking cracking jokes at it. Come on. It's a joke. Get it? Not funny, I know, but still. Did something leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Where have I heard something like that before?
Now that we've proven our witness is a comedian of sorts, I'd like to turn to our defense attorney before returning to the testimony. Do you have any idea what, if anything, might have left that studio that night?
Can't think of a single thing.
Oh, I meant to present evidence. Okay. If anything did leave, wouldn't Mr. Brushel have noticed?
That I would. Nothing left. Save myself, of course.
Say that again and you'll be held in contempt in court. Let's get back to the cross-examination then.
Hold it!
Hold on, I've got something for you. You're in contempt of court.
Just one thing. I think one thing might very well have left the studio that night, actually.
A certain something that has vanished from the crime scene. By which do you mean something other than our witness? Of course. Don't tell me. Vera Misham?
Believe me, any comic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional.
Then, let's see what you've got for us, Mr. Justice.
Well, this thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows how it could have been taken from the scene.
Take that!
This is the only link between that studio and the outside world. A letterbox.
What did Mr. Brushel just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter. Yeah, I said that. And yeah, it was true. Furthermore, he went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox. That very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night, the yellow envelope disappeared.
Yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing.
Huh?
Here's the point, Mr. Justice. What we're trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he saw disappeared? Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. That seems very important to me. Very well then. The witness will add this to his testimony.
You got it.
I still think this fails to change anything, Herr Forehead.
I wouldn't be so sure.
A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for.
Letter was put in the post from the studio, but I hardly think that matters.
Hold it!
Nothing could be more serious than an envelope disappearing from that studio. And you were hiding that fact from us.
Yes, well, actually.
I don't argue the possibility that a letter disappeared from that studio. But Herr Forehead, isn't there a much more serious question before us?
Right. How Mr. Misham was poisoned, I know.
Mr. Brushel's testimony has changed, which means the facts of the case have too. What he told us means that something entirely different now.
And what he's told us means something entirely different now, I'm starting to think. Let's keep thinking, Apollo.
Oh, whoops.
What do you think, Apollo? Everything he's saying seems so... not flawed.
Well, that's kind of what you want from a testimony, really. I need to keep my eye on what matters. How and why was Drew Misham killed? Vera poured the coffee, that's not going to change. But if that coffee didn't kill him, I need to find what did and prove it. Present. It might be too soon for this. But let's try it anyway.
Objection!
Okay, yeah. So that is going to be for the step afterwards for a possible alternative. I've never actually looked at this. What a pretty business card. Looks like a postcard almost. Postcard almost. On the back. Just your name. That seems odd to me. Huh? What does? Why write your name on the front and back of the card? Why not just use the space on the back for a self-portrait? Or a caricature? Then people would remember what you look like too. That's not a bad idea, actually. Here, give me one of your cards, Apollo. He's drawing something. Hey, my hair's not that spiky! Letter was put in the post box from the studio, but I hardly think that matters. Do I do the red envelope?
Objection!
Nope. I'm gonna press everything else first. I don't think there's anything else for me to collect, but there might be. Save.
Hold it!
But that doesn't prove Vera poisoned it.
Objection!
How many times have we heard that one in our forehead? The poison reached its victim via the coffee mug. And from where did that coffee come, Not to beat a dead horse again and again, but perhaps you could fill us in. I'm on it! You need a horse beat? I'm your man! Maybe don't beat horses of any kind. And you witnessed her pouring the coffee? Of course I didn't witness it. When she came in with that tray, and the coffee was already poured and steaming. Let us not forget the defendant has admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard her statement. I poured, I served, and I killed. What? That last part was just a little joke. I don't think I'm gonna get anywhere with this coffee mug. I need to find another weak spot in this case.
Hold it!
You're sure about that? Well, to be really, really precise, I was busy gobbling mint candies all the time. One of those candies might have been poisoned.
Objection!
Yet, at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room. And no mint residue was found. It was a long shot anyway. Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee? Well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof, the possibility is there. I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it. Not yet. Impossibility isn't going to cut it. Not now. Mr. Misham ingested that poison via a route other than the coffee. Ah, there we go. Proof is possible. Here goes nothing. Yo, he's rocking. You do understand what we need, yeah? Proof, Air Forehead, not possibilities. Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof. What did you say? I have proof of the disappearing envelope. I saw him writing a letter, I did! Which was picked up by the mailman, I assume. Of course. Which means that envelope had a stamp on it. A stamp? As we all know, stamps come with dried glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it. By licking the stamp.
Objection!
No one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age. Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all. Okay, so he licked the stamp. But wait, how does that explain the atroquinine on the rim of the coffee mug? If you licked the back of a poisoned stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes? What would then happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth, Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing. It was the other way around. What? The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug himself. On accident. Unknowingly. But that doesn't... Does it? Recall, if you would, atroquinine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope. But his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his love... But his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lips to that cup of joe. Ugh. Gavin's waiting for his turn to say, present evidence. Wow. Neat. Oh, he's sniffing. You have something to add, Mr. Brushel? Oh, his nose is picking up another scent. As I believe I mentioned earlier. Letter in the envelope. Mr. Mission sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Stamp, a so-called postage stamp. End quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one. Maybe he just run out? Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps. Not a single one. That does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison? Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp he used was poison possible. Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place. Well, let's hear what this defense has to say. Where's your evidence that proves the existence of this poison stamp? Tiny frame. Well, that certainly is a cute little frame. And by little, I mean really little. It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself. I noticed that too during my inspection. So what? Apparently you weren't as observant as you should have been. You see, when you saw this frame, it was missing something quite important. Missing something? Yes. Pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atroquinine residue. What? Why wasn't I told about this? The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most. You're insane. Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps? The poison stamp was in this frame? Impossible! Prosecutor Gavin? Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there so he could commit suicide if the mood struck. You know? Can I say something? I'd have thought, see? What, Mr. Brushel? And please, stop jittering around like that. The victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends, makes enemies too. End quote. So the poison stamp might have been a murder weapon aimed at him.
Objection!
Oh, Rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous flights of fancy to the Governor's song lyrics, please. Finally, something we agree on. The stamp was a murder weapon? Nonsense. Murder is a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one. Oh, I disagree. Come again? Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Drew Misham hid from the world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail. The mail? Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew read letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon. Ridiculous! Where's your proof? I want proof! Show us evidence that this poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon. I might not have evidence per se. Things are finally starting to come together. What is it, Apollo? Fists are trembling. I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Mission was killed. Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice. A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I can show you how someone with intent to kill sent Mr. Mission the stamp of death. With the enclosed stamp within 3 days.
Take that!
Isn't this the envelope? The one from 7 years ago? Think about the text of this letter again. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1. And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor.
In other words, if I have this straight, the stamp, poison, on the stamp, lick, lick, gasp, end quote.
Now, what if he'd done exactly as the letter asked? He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, and put the stamp on it, right? And then he would put it in his letterbox. 15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter. But the clock started ticking, and when the time came, he drew his last breath, and the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene. Quite conveniently, thanks to the postal system. Such a splendid imagination you have, Airforehead. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. So, this poison stamp was inside this envelope from the 7 years ago. Yeah? Is that what you'd have us believe? Really? Well, it is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a possibility. Yes, a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? A poison stamp in this envelope? The stamp that then became the murder weapon? How do you intend to improve this seeming coincidence? Well, it was 7 years ago, and we don't even know who sent that letter. And your answer is silence, I see. Very well. I move to... It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein, Clavier. What are you doing here? What is it? Oh. Emma! Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression? Did I sound like him? Don't quit your day job. Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fraulein Detective? Someone had to come dig you out of all the mess you're making of this case. Mess? You know, none of this would have happened if you just trusted in science a little more. You can find out if that stamp was in that envelope. Easy. Here to explain yourself, Fraulein Detective? Glare at me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right? That's right! The poison detection spray. Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority of the court. Ah, there we go. Ooh. Wow, would you look at that? No mistaking it. That's atroquinine residue. I don't believe it. Murder weapon from the past. Now, 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last. Absolutely outrageous! Tell me why. Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago? Well, there's one possibility. Maybe Mr. Mission figured it out. Figured what out? He realized that the person who sent this letter wanted him dead. So he sent his reply with a different stamp. And put his decisive evidence in a frame. You're still here? Can I make a statement here, on the record? I, Spark Razor-Tooth Brushel, claim this scoop is mine! Drew Misham killed in cold blood by sender of 7-year-old letter, end quote.
No, maybe something more succinct. Star falls after 7-year delay. End quote.
I see no room for further argument here. Though I admit this is all coming as quite a shock. I think the murder weapon reached his mouth after 7 years. Stamp his ticket straight to afterlife. End quote.
Uh-oh. I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge.
I see no need for further debate on this matter. The sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant.
Apollo, I think we just won.
Very well. This court finds a defendant.
Objection!
Is this the bright future of our legal system? Prosecutor Gavin? A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago. Tickets for Gaviner shows are invalid after 2 weeks. But it doesn't make sense any other way. Boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. There's a fatal contradiction in Air Forehead's claim. A contradiction? Poison stamp was placed in this envelope 7 years ago, whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Drew Misham have done what he did? Emma explained that. He must have realized it was poisoned. Therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Drew Misham sensed a trap and put the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this. This begs the question. Why, 7 years later, did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? Surely you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham had simply forgot? He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years. And forgot? You expect us to believe he's spraying the trap on himself? Warg! Weird face, end quote. While I admit this is all quite shocking myself, it does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap that had been sitting on his desk for 7 years.
Apollo!
I don't think we're winning anymore. I'm glad we're all back in the real world now. Welcome back to reality. We've been waiting for you.
Objection!
Okay, then how do you explain the poison stamp that was in this envelope? Poison stamp? Where exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court before? Have you brought it to court for us? I see no proof that such a thing ever existed.
Objection!
What about the atroquinine residue, huh? Oh, I agree, that does seem to be atroquinine residue. But, Herr Forehead, it's certainly no stamp. Yeah, but... Even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Drew Misham never would have used it. That is all. I believe we've come to a conclusion. Again.
Apollo, were we wrong this whole time? I can't believe it. The poison traces match up.
It can't be a coincidence. You know, you're pushing that she poisoned him all this time, but where's the bottle of poison? I'm sure she needed a source, right? Where's your murder weapon, huh? I'd like to bring some closure to this issue, sometimes this year. Mr. Justice? Yes, Your Honor. Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Drew Misham received the red envelope. There were traces of the poison atroquinine on the document inside that envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene, on this tiny picture frame. The defense has indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope. An envelope that left the scene of the crime with a poison stamp on it. Yes, but even if the envelope contained a poison stamp, and Drew Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame, he never would have used that stamp. I'm afraid you're right, which means there is a fatal flaw in the defense's case. I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. The traces of atroquinine, the envelope, the frame, Drew Misham's mysterious death, all connected somehow. Well, Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us? The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We've seen that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be fake. Haha, fake clue. Fascinating. And if we find this fake, your wild fantasies will prove quite reasonable, yeah? The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than... Oh. I don't see a bar there. Let's go for it. The victim was a fake clue? I'm afraid I don't understand. I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, a mug. Linked by... we have an envelope, a frame, and a mug, linked by poison. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself. Congratulations. You've completely lost me. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger. It makes a good story, I'll give you that. The fake clue, fakes, forgeries. I know that face. That's the I just had an idea face. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. What if our forger is the fake? Come again? 7 years ago, our forger sniffed a trap and stepped aside. 7 years passed. Now the forger stumbles into the very same trap and dies. Why? That's what I want to know. Because the forger who was killed was a fake. Here we are again. The victim was a fake. One forger smelled the trap. One forger fell into the trap. That's two forgers, and one of them was a fake. So you're telling us that Drew Misham, the victim, was a fake? Well, if he was the fake, who was the real forger? You'd better not be claiming there was some kind of a switcheroo. I'm afraid you're going to have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us just who the real Drew Misham was. If Drew Misham wasn't the real forger, there's only one other person that could have been. Understood, Your Honor. Forger Drew Misham was himself a forgery. The real forger was... There can be only one explanation, really. The real identity of the forger, known as Drew Misham, is none other than his only daughter, Vera Misham. Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb even for you. I kind of agree. I mean, Vera? A forger? Let's consider it before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This can only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger. Well, actually, that does make a certain kind of sense. Let me read that one more time to myself. Forgery had been taken blah blah blah. Forger wasn't caught in the trap 7 years ago. Okay, the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger. Okay, sure. One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints were found in the forger's studio. Drew Misham's and Vera Misham's. If we know that Drew Misham wasn't the forger, that leaves only one possibility by process of elimination. The forger was Vera Misham. Well? Hell yeah. Pulling theories out of my ass. Fascinating. It's time to ask. More importantly, it's time for me to split the bot.